Alrighty, this refuse recycling committee meeting is called to order. Roll call, please.
Jen Burnett.
Here.
Fred Noble.
Here.
Jen Runner.
Here.
Mary Ann Bruder.
Here.
And Paula Bush.
Here. Alrighty, any public comment?
Yeah, I want to say a few things. I know I don't have a paper. It's it's okay. So I'm sorry. I'll give you back. So I gave you a copy, and before I start, this is not finished. It's an unfinished job, so that you know this is not complete. This is a start of a spreadsheet that will include all the information for the municipalities who actually have a contract. Not all municipalities in Berks have, but these are the ones that do. To give you some idea of what you're looking at, the green line means there's no data yet from Borough. There were more, now it's the only one. The orange or yellow, whatever you call it, it's the user fee is included in taxes. And the blue ones are the municipalities who do some form of differentiation based on various criteria. Like, for example, Kumru, if there is only one person, they pay only $300 per year. Anything more than that, $330. Another one that's very interesting is no, not Reading. Yeah, Spring, which recycling is 80, trash for one person 95, so these are added. Trash for two people is 185, and trash for three people 265. So there is a staggered system considering the amount of people in a household. There are many ways to look at it. I know Kenhorst also has something. I'm sorry. Kutztown has for people 62 and older, the fee drops to half. So those are various ways to look at it. But like I said, there is more information. I decided I'm gonna expand the spreadsheet to include individual contract data so we can see exactly how much the contract, how many people, how many households, so we see exact. Anyway, long story. Bottom line is, even if you look at it, Wyomissing at 555 is by far the highest in the land, by a lot. So I think it's worth looking at it. And again, we have the same services and as quite a few of these on the list. The other thing that I wanted to say was, I lost my train of thought now. If I'll remember, I'll tell you. Like I said, we have to look at all the services. Again, I looked, and there are quite a few that have the same services as us. Oh yes, this is what I want to say. I looked at the video back when, and when just before this, when Mascaro came, they claimed that we get a great deal. They gave some examples. Then again, recently, they claimed that no, the areas of lower income are actually more. And that's, again, a statement that's not supported by data. Even that person said, oh, that could be because it's a higher density. No, duh, of course, it's a higher density. Therefore, overall, you might have more trash in a certain neighborhood, but the question is how much per household, not per neighborhood. So the only way to do this is to ask for data, real data from the hauler because those trucks go in, go out.
Excuse me,
They-
Adrian?
Yes.
You exceeded 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fair enough. No problem.
All right, thank
You
you
got
for
it?
the presentation.
Yeah, no problem. It's okay.
I forgot to start myself. Okay.
I have a
Is
brief.
there anybody else who would like to
Yes,
make
my
public
name's David
comment?
George, I'm a Wyomissing resident, and I observed that the EAC ordinance draft that was provided by the Borough Council's attorney was significantly different from that which was sent to the attorney for what I thought was just going to be restructuring to fit the rule regulations of the Wyomissing Borough. I'm concerned that the structure that was established in this ordinance would make it difficult for EAC to expand the scope of the committee. I believe it's very important that there be a large enough group of volunteers with a long enough tenure in order to assure that, one, that the group of volunteers would have the breadth of skills and interests and the time to be leaders in exploring the areas of importance and reporting to the committee at large, and avoiding a risk of loss of momentum for projects when one or two committee members would leave the committee either by end of term or other circumstances. There'd be a limit in terms of institutional memory. I think we've all observed small committees that lose one or two people often are not functional for a period of time and lose a lot of ground. So I would strongly favor requesting return to the parameters stated in the original draft, and I think that a version I've seen looking at all of the things that the previous draft had and the ones that the current draft has, I think the recommendations by We Can Serve PA and so on would strongly favor what was submitted originally, not the latter. And I hope we'll go back to that and consider again more members, 5 to 7, preferably 7, 2 of whom would be perhaps members of Borough Council, and at least 3-year terms with a rotating schedule would be recommendations that I would make. Thank you, and I look forward to your discussion.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Greg, were you standing to speak, or you just get shifting? Okay, I didn't want to. All right. Notwithstanding the date on the agenda, it is July 24th, and
Now I pulled up the old one. I
That's okay.
apologize. I have them both saved.
probably not a whole lot different. Okay.
I have the new one. I just
All right.
opened the wrong email.
All right.
Were there any significant changes on the?
No, I don't think there were. That's why I just figured that it hadn't been updated at all.
They're on here.
Right.
Oh.
That's on this one. It's already there, so I think this is probably identified in the date. So I'm not worried about it. All right. Data.
So the tonnage reports, the good news is trash tonnage was down in June. Can't say the difference was necessarily made up in recycling, but I'm wondering if yard waste was down too, so I don't really know if people are on vacation and just not generating as much trash. I would actually think with kids being home from school, that would have gone the other way, but could be wrong about that. Here's your recycling tonnage, definitely down from May, but on par with April. Your yard waste tonnage is down, but given how dry it's been, that also doesn't surprise me. I think I cut my grass once in the past 2 months, which I'm not complaining about. And let me pull that up so you can actually see it. We've been informed that our grant, so keep in mind, we're getting money in the current year for 2 years prior because we'll submit this year for 23, but till it actually goes through the state approval process and we get the money, it'll be 25. So we received $59,352, which is roughly on par with what we got the 2 years before that.
And what is performance grant? This is the recycling, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Commercial performance recycling, not residential.
Right. The residential will pay, right?
Correct.
So nothing other than the significant drop in trash. Anybody want to discuss those reports further?
Just a comment. Is it possible to have, other than the year 2024, can we have like a few previous years to compare to? I thought we did in the past. at the recycling tonnage, just to compare what, you know, this year as opposed to the previous year, the year before, yard waste,
Yeah, I think I drafted some charts.
they're out there.
No, but in previous months I had created what you're looking for. So
Okay.
why don't we just ask for that for the next meeting, would that be all right?
Yes, that'd be
Okay.
great,
And 22 forward,
that'd be great,
all right,
yeah, 3 years, wonderful, thank you.
thanks for bringing it up. All right, well, performance.
There were some issues with missed yard waste in June, which Melissa and I met with our route supervisor to get to the bottom of it. New driver error. I do understand if you are a new person coming into the borough and you've never been here before, just understanding the intricacies of the alleys alone is a bit of a challenge. Those issues seem to have cleared up, I would say, since the first week of July. So fingers crossed, the current driver knows the route and stays as our driver, and we should be in good shape. But again, Jose is very responsive when we communicate, okay, we're getting a lot of calls, what is going on, and we have concerns. He's very responsive about being out in the field and physically following them as they go, so they're not missing.
And I presume once he learned that something had been missed, they would pick it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they quickly picked up, they missed all of Marymount Road a few weeks ago.
And that's normally how we can tell when we get the call, if it's one house in the middle of a block that's missed versus the whole block.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing you didn't
You
have your
didn't
stuff
have
out when the
your
truck
stuff.
came
Yeah.
versus.
No, it was the whole, like, everybody else's trash cans were away except for ours. I was like, alright, maybe I should call. I was like, I was gonna wait, somebody else would call. I'm like, I'm just gonna call. And they came very quickly the next day, like right after I called, I called the next day.
I don't know where, Jose sent me the information he put together based off of area of the borough. I only got it maybe an hour ago, so it's not been distributed to the committee, and I'm a little worried we're violating our own policy if I pull it up. So I can save that for next month, but the data he documented showing area of the borough, size of the property, and or income versus the amount of trash, the amount of recycling that's being put out, that will be shared for the next meeting.
All right, data's great, thanks. All right, anybody else have some comments on number 5? All right, and number 6, we asked that this be put on because it appeared that glass really is not recycled. We're paying a premium to have it faux recycled, and then we're on top of it, we're saving the hauler money, because he doesn't have to buy things to put on top of his trash to keep it down, so.
Well, we're paying more weight wise.
Correct, correct, so it seemed that we should discuss whether to discourage people from recycling glass. It seemed, personally, it doesn't make sense to encourage people to recycle glass when it costs more, and it's not recycled. But I'd like to know what others think.
Well, it is being reused, I would say, so in a sense, it's being recycled, it's just not to our monetary benefit.
Right, but we don't know whether they have excess amount either. And it could be that even without our glass, they have enough glass from others to satisfy their need.
On top of we're paying for the tonnage, which is more expensive for recycling than it is for just general trash.
Rather than discourage people from recycling glass, can we talk to, you know, to them about not using it or giving us a price break? That way we can't.
We have a contract that clearly
We have a
spells out.
contract, but we can at least imply to them that we're not happy with this.
Well, but if we put it in recycle, they treat it as recycle.
Yeah. So it's really up to a resident where are you putting it.
Right, but I just think it's a bad, it's, how will we explain to the residents, oh, we don't even,
But it's not, we just explained to them it's no longer being recycled.
Where I live, where I live, we were given mailers at the beginning of the year, do not put glass in recycling.
for the same reason?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And the same hauler.
No, it's advanced.
Everybody's having the same problem, but just.
Well, what about if we, is there a what does the county do? Like, can we
No.
bring glass there?
I can
It's
answer.
still not gonna be recycled.
No.
That's the problem.
Glass is not
It's
being recycled, period.
No matter what you do with it.
Closest
I
smelter
think if
is
you
in
live in
Texas.
like Maine or Vermont, you can do the
Seriously?
$5 or 5 cent deposit, like here's my bottle, take it back.
Really?
Yeah, it's just not being
Well-
recycled.
I think we should have an educational blurb if we're gonna tell the residents that, this is why.
So do we just add it into the next talking trash
We can.
and just recommend that glass not go into recycling, it's not being recycled?
Just increases the
Costing
cost.
you tax dollars to recycle something that's not being recycled.
And then when we would bid the next contract, we would exclude glass from recyclable materials.
Yeah,
Fred, your thoughts?
I think it's absolutely silly to pay money.
right.
So the notice should go out in as many ways as possible, as quickly as possible.
I don't think we need to vote on that, it seems like everybody agrees. Alright. Composting program. Judge Arthur Grimm called Melissa to express an interest in a composting program, and she referred him to me. So Fred and I certainly know who Judge Grimm is, I don't know whether the rest of you have any idea. He's a very distinguished jurist from Berks County, respected statewide. When the Cash for Kids program came to light, he was in charge of investigating it. Yeah. So, he says that he spends his summers in Canada, but he lives at Wyomissing Meadows. He is very excited about the composting program in, I think Montreal is where he is. He didn't have any details, but his understanding was that the amount of money they saved by putting composting in a common place where other people could use it, rather than putting it in trash, actually ended up saving money, even though they had to spend money to pick it up and do other things. He said that the city of Reading is looking into a composting program. And he was very enthusiastic about Wyomissing looking into it, to see whether it was something that we could initiate. Well, so it seems to me it is at least worth developing a committee to look at and coming back with us recommendations, telling us what other people are doing, their thoughts on how it would work for us, if at all, where we would put the composting material. I don't know whether it's feasible, but I think it's worth looking into. Michelle, you were going to say.
My biggest question would be, what's the location
Yeah.
of the community composting pile, and what's that look like?
Right, and the challenge is,
How do you control what goes in it?
well, and the challenge is who's going to take the composting out too, who's accessible to, so there's certainly a lot of challenges.
Okay.
And he didn't know whether we might piggyback with the Reading program, I don't know, but I think it's at least worth looking at. So would anybody be interested in serving on a committee to look into the possibility of a composting program in Wyomissing? Mary Ann? And as before, I would encourage people who are not on this committee to serve. Does anybody, Greg, you'd be interested? Dave? Okay. That's our committee. Committee of 3, and Mary Ann will head it. And if you all can coordinate,
Who else, Dave and
Greg.
Greg? Okay, thank you.
And I think you've got their email addresses. Okay. All right, thank you. And I told Judge Grimm I would report back. EAC.
Do you want me to call Chris? He's available by phone,
Sure.
so he can explain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to call him for this one.
This is the chart I created, if anybody needs.
Hey Chris, I'm actually gonna call you back from the council chamber phone, but I just wanted to tell you that quick so you didn't think that number was a spam number, if you were expecting a call from my cell phone.
No problem.
Okay, I'll call you right back.
Anybody need it?
I got it.
Greg, did you get one? Thank you.
Hello.
Hey Chris, you're here.
All right, we're now discussing the proposed EAC ordinance. I believe that the members of the committee expected an ordinance to incorporate our ideas and to put them in an appropriate format. And what we found was that many of our ideas were incorporated, but many were not without explanation. So I created a comparison of what we had recommended with what we got. And I don't know whether we're gonna have enough time or patience today to go through every change that was made, which was not requested, but this might be a two-meeting process, but I appreciate your attending the meeting and welcome any comments that you have about how you perceived your job and why you disagree with the committee on certain points.
Well, let me just say that the big picture that I was trying to accomplish with the draft that I prepared was to amend the existing ordinance for the Refuse and Recycling Committee to incorporate the additional areas of responsibility relating to environmental issues above and beyond refuse and recycling, and then to change the name of the committee to match the larger scope of responsibility. And I think if you look at the draft ordinance, which was essentially a cut and paste of the refuse and recycling ordinance, showing strikeouts and underlines for insertions, which I think show how I modified the refuse and recycling ordinance to address the new activities of the committee. So what I anticipated was that you had researched what other municipalities had done with environmental advisory commissions. And again, I was trying to adapt it to what I perceived to be the purpose of this project. So, I mean, obviously, if you're looking to have this as something entirely different from an amended refuse and recycling committee, I could understand that you didn't get what you were expecting. So it could be that we just didn't have the same outlook about what the purpose was. But having said what I just said, I want to also say that there are certain things which we have as sort of standard formats for the committees of the borough, and I think the existing refuse and recycling committee ordinance follows that existing format, and I took the information that you had provided and fit it into that same format as part of that amendment of the refuse and recycling committee ordinance. So at least from my point of view, the draft ordinance that I prepared was essentially doing what you were looking for, but not in exactly the format that you might have been expecting.
Well, I think, speaking on behalf of the committee, we were expecting format changes, and we do appreciate that. But, for example, we suggested 3-year terms, which would be staggered, and your draft have a one-year term.
Additionally, the 3-year staggered terms comes from the Pennsylvania guidelines for an environmental advisory council. The Pennsylvania state has certain guidelines to develop this environmental advisory council or commission or committee, whatever you wanna call it. And some of their guidelines are 5 to 7 members, of which we prefer 7. But they are 3-year terms that are staggered. So that's why we had that in our ordinance that we had created, because that's as per Pennsylvania state guidelines for
So-
EAC.
So would you explain why you did not make the change we requested?
Well, again, the way I approached it was to modify the refuse and recycling committee ordinance, and that has 1-year terms. So I just carried forward the term aspect because, again, what I was trying to help you with and what I thought was the purpose of the project was to add additional and different responsibilities for the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee, and I was intending to only change those things which I thought were necessary to change the scope of responsibility of the committee, and the terms and the manner of appointment were things which I perceived to be not at the core of the purpose of the new committee, and I just carried forward what was already existing for the refuse and recycling. So certainly the terms can be different, the number of members can be different. What I was doing was, as I already said, carrying forward what was already existing for refuse and recycling.
Okay, well, in so doing, you ignored specific things that we said we wanted in the ordinance, so, I guess it's up to the committee, but my suggestion to the committee is I get the word, Chris, you didn't word, and I'll change it to what the committee wants, because that's not what we got.
I think the plan was to abolish the refuse and recycling committee and establish the EAC with the roles of refuse and recycling as well as the roles of an EAC as per Pennsylvania state guidelines.
So I think we were looking for your guidance on things like, should it be a commission versus a committee? I wasn't clear on the legal significance between those two.
Or a council, which is what's recommended by the Pennsylvania statute.
But,
What is the
we
difference
weren't
between those
looking
two?
for you to basically slap our hands and say, no, when you said you wanted 3-year terms, either that's not what you meant, or I'm not willing to make that change in the ordinance. So.
Well, I think you are misperceiving what I was doing. I did not understand that this was something that you had refined to the point of having, an express goal for this language that you provided to me. What I thought you provided to me was an example of what other communities had done and were asking me to put it into a Wyomissing format. And as part of that formatting, again, I incorporated what we already had for refuse recycling. So I was not slapping anybody's hands. I wouldn't do that. That's not my job. But I do think there may have been a misunderstanding on my part about the extent to which you had formed a very specific outcome that you were seeking. Again, I thought you provided me a sample. I didn't understand that this was something that the committee had formed a very, specific objective to have that particular language.
Well, I'm sorry, you didn't understand that, because we had gone to the trouble of not only creating a draft, but creating a committee which reviewed it and came back with a final recommendation, so, okay.
So
So
can
the-
it
but the
be revised?
miscommunication is going to push us back for
Push
2
us back.
months.
So where do we go?
So again, my suggestion is, I'd feel more comfortable if I revised, get that draft in Word and revise it. I mean, Chris is welcome, take another shot at it, but this is just so
Why
far off
don't
the
we take
mark.
our original draft that Jen and.
Well, I realize, I look at our original draft and I realize there's a bunch in here that doesn't need to be in here, such as meetings and, you know,
But we should have
Other
in there that
items.
we can determine the
Leave
meeting,
about this,
the
Jen.
EAC can
But,
determine
yeah, I
the
did-
frequency.
yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
could-
get a chance
could
to
I
look through all
comment?
that. Yeah.
On that point. None of our other standing committees have the provisions regarding, you know, how to keep records of the meeting and that kind of thing. I think there were some provisions that really, in my opinion, weren't necessary, in that we have very well-functioning committees that don't have in their ordinance those kinds of provisions. So
Yeah,
it seemed
I
to
agree
me
with you, yeah,
that we
That's
don't
okay.
need to have those.
right.
We'll throw in back 3 of those.
And then also about the name, again, my goal, and again, this is obviously not what your goal was, but in drafting this, I was looking for continuity of the Refuse and Recycling Committee, and that's why I called it a committee. I changed the name, but I kept it a committee. I don't think there's any magic to committee versus commission or something else. But I do think there is an implication in the name. And what I would perceive to be the implication in the name is that a committee has a function of reporting to another body, whereas a commission could have independent authority. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And again, pick the name that you think reflects how you perceive the purpose of this group. If you have, you know, again, looking at the overall format of how we do committees, I was intending this to be a committee that makes recommendations and that reports to council. If your objective is for this group to have some independent authority of some kind, and I'm not quite sure what that would look like, but if that is what the objective is, then maybe you want to be a commission instead of a committee in order to reflect that independent authority, whatever that might be.
I don't think we view ourselves as any more independent than Park and Shade Tree Commission, for example. So I think the use of commission in that context is throwing things off.
Well, you know, some of these terms are carried over from the Borough Code. Park and Shade Tree, Planning Commission, things like that. But, you know, there is no EAC in the Borough Code, so we don't have exactly a corollary in the Borough Code to identify what the name is. But again, I'm not sure it's going to make any real difference what term you use. So I think you should use the term that you want.
Chris,
There's a group about commissions though.
well, I was gonna say, for what it's worth, the Park and Shade Commission does actually have independent authority in very specific circumstances outside of council, and it's actually related to the removal of trees.
Oh, okay.
Because some of you who were around when the Wawa got developed, that request went to Park and Shade to take the trees down on Penn Avenue, not council.
I'd be opposed to any type of independent authority.
We don't expect to have it, we didn't see that as a distinction.
Yeah,
But I appreciate
don't
your
think we're
comments,
even
Chris.
asking for it,
No,
so I don't think.
no, I think we essentially thought we were advisory.
Yeah, this is advisory, and in our write-up, it's to advise the
It's by law.
specific committee or straight to council that it needs to go to. Right.
Yeah.
You know, he
that's,
either works his way slowly up the chain or quickly, but.
I had in the back of my mind, there's advisory councils, and there's some advantage to being called a council to get money or something like that.
Right, right.
so I think that's something we need to look into. Okay,
Yeah, I would be surprised if the name would make any difference in terms of funding opportunities, but, you know, I could be corrected on that, but I'm not sure why that would make a difference.
me neither, but,
I also want to comment about some of the tweaks that I made on the way that the group would approach environmental issues. And, you know, this might be relevant to your revision of what I had prepared or replacement of it with something entirely different. That I was trying to use language that would focus the environmental concerns on the borough, and, you know, not so much on global environmental issues, but on local community environmental issues. So, you know, you might see some language tweaks in that regard, and that was what I was trying to achieve with those tweaks, was to focus the attention on borough and local environmental issues.
I understand that, but I think some of the language used had unintended effects. For example, there was language allowing us to consider comments by, it might have been
Well, it was about complaints.
state and local information, but then that, because that language is so specific, it would seem to exclude federal or county. So there are some times when I got your point, but I thought that because of the choice of language, it didn't do what was intended.
Bless you.
So,
Okay.
so
Well, and-
again, so I guess our point is, we made recommendations after deliberation. And
Okay.
we would like a draft ordinance which is true to our recommendations. And I would appreciate your taking another crack at it, but I would also like to get your draft in words so I can take a crack at it too.
Sure.
If the committee,
Well,
if that is the
you
wish
know,
of the committee.
I think, well, one of us should take whatever the next step is. I mean, I guess what I would recommend, since I'm not sure exactly what, you know, I mean, I could go back and look at what you had originally provided to me and work with that. If you want to do something with what I provided, certainly I'll provide that to you in Word. I don't think we should both do that, though. I think one or the other of us should take the next step.
Okay, but then it makes sense to me that I do it, in part
Okay.
because I have already prepared a chart, which you should have gotten by email, which doesn't mean that you have nothing to do other than check your emails from me today. But it describes what I see as specific concerns about your draft, and I think because I've gone through that exercise, it would be quicker for me to make changes. So I will
Well,
make
that's fine.
changes and send it to you, and if you would look at the changes in light of the chart, I think then we would make more progress faster.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think that would be an efficient way to do it.
But then I would like to have this committee meet in a month and not wait 2 more months, because I would like this to finally be enacted by the end of the year. The longer we drag this out, the less likely that is. So, if I can get it to you in a couple weeks, do you think you'd be able to review it within a couple weeks after that?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put your next committee meeting on my calendar and make sure that anything I receive before then, I have reviewed in advance of that meeting.
All right, well, we will set the committee, we'll set the next meeting before we leave. All right, so I don't,
Does he need a copy of the Pennsylvania statute enabling the EACs, or would you already have access to that?
Twenty-four listed as the statutes.
well,
Yeah.
And has he looked at?
no, because he wasn't aware of the E6, so it's probably not, so we
You
will
already
simply.
explained why, he
we'll-
explained why he was redoing the other ordinance.
Okay, well,
And putting it in format that we can.
when I transmit it to him, I will share a link.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so. Let me see how the wording is.
What are you looking
think our agreement, other than perhaps Fred, is that the draft will be revised and will come back to, go to the solicitor, come back to the committee for the next, for review and hopefully moving on to council at the next meeting. So it doesn't make sense to me that we're tabling it.
But you are, because you're changing it.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be two. We're not doing anything until next meeting.
Yeah, just.
We're not acting on it, yeah, okay. All right, but for next,
Do
for
we
the,
need a motion
for the
to
next,
do this?
all right, so we need a motion to table. But then the agenda for the next meeting has to be, motion is needed to table, approve, or deny the proposed ordinance. Move it on to council.
And that meeting will be in a month?
I'm hoping in a month. We will
Great.
hopefully pull out our calendars before this meeting ends, so we can keep this moving forward. Okay, all right, so I'm making a motion to table the concept of an EAC as described in the proposed ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right,
Thanks, Chris.
thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
bet. Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Your turn then. Any public comment? You exhausted. Okay, Greg, what's up?
The message.
It's yours?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's a question.
All right. All right, well, I'm not sure the question's gonna make sense without, Prelude to it.
The reports we were looking at.
oh, in the
on
reports,
screen,
okay.
And there was math,
Oh, okay, you thought there was a math error.
yes.
Okay.
And
All right, do you mind if I give this to Michelle and she could take a look at,
we decided last time that we're looking at it.
maybe you can explain your concern.
I remember last time we looked at the reports.
Thanks, Ron.
It was total, and then we are paying this amount, and then they like have some income from selling something, and it is added to what we are really paying.
But that's because we're not getting paid for recycling anymore, we're now paying for it to be disposed of. So the numbers, if you're adding one to the other, like there's no longer income from the sale of recycling, we're paying for it.
If there is no income, why it was added to the report?
It wasn't shown as income, in that case it was shown as an additional amount we were paying.
So.
I think the number was around like 80,000 if I recall correctly.
Something.
Yeah, that was not an amount we were calling income, it was an additional amount we were paying.
So maybe it was wrongly named in the report, so next time we'll see it, I will ask you.
I don't think it was wrongly named because I made the point of, instead of it showing this way, it showing this way because it is now an expense, not revenue.
I will ask next time, so we don't have example in front of us right now, so I cannot.
No, because I believe that was a year-end number. I can go back and look at that at some point, but that's not a report we give you every time we meet.
I wasn't sure quite which report he was referring to, so that's why I asked him to talk to you, because
It was coming up because I believe that was the meeting, I was not at your last meeting because I was on vacation, so it was
Oh.
actually the March meeting when Mascaro
I
was
thought he
here.
was talking about a report that was,
No.
oh.
So that was a Mascaro report showing, here's what you used to get from the sale of your recycling versus now,
Okay.
like that also was not our report, it was a
Okay.
Mascaro report.
Okay,
That's what that was.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? You, go ahead. 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's 08, 09, whatever. Yes, so yeah, I have to, live to my reputation of saying things as they are. I'm disappointed that the council did not really look into it. Like I said, this is Act 148, this is the law. He's referring to the Borough Code, But this is Pennsylvania law enacting EACs, and just like Paula said, this is what it's called. We can't call it an apple when it's a banana, or the other way around. So
I think it was a verbal misunderstanding. He thought we just pulled up a random EAC and gave it to him. He did not realize we.
Yeah, but what
Creative
I'm saying is,
I
I
know,
think
I know.
he should know what's in the law, honest to God. So when I said initially that I would trust there are 5 clear powers that the EAC has, and the fact of having any decision-making is a non-issue because the law clearly states it is an advisory council to the Borough Council. So that's a non-issue whatsoever. There is nothing other than advising, and the council has the executive power to enact items. So we're talking, I wish he would have read the law, all I can say. So again, we cannot make something, he cannot come up with an ordinance that enacts something that then it's not what the law is asking. So clearly we're not gonna take any advantages from grants because we don't qualify. This is not what we are. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jana, for taking,
Thank you.
on that.
All right.
Just a couple of words. It's about glass.
Okay.
If we are not encouraging people to put it into recycling, there is a solution. For example, they need glass to use it as a material to pour into the land, whatever it is, where they put the trash. Landfill, sorry. We already have their container at the quarry. My daughter is playing soccer, so I saw this container, big one. So we can encourage our residents just to get to the quarry and put it into specifically established new container for the glass only. We will not be paying for it, it's only for them if they want it. And then Mascara wants this glass for their own purpose. We are not paying for it.
I see what you mean.
Yes, there is a container that they put glass only. People are coming and putting glass. I will be putting glass there. Right now, I started putting it into the trash, not recycling. That's why you have less digits.
Numbers. Just because of Greg and his bottles.
Yeah.
Asking that people drive from the Sparrow and donate it? I'm sorry. Are you,
I don't know, he wants it at the, I think you're looking at, for a location to put it at.
I know the location.
Where's the location?
Suggesting
At the
that
quarry,
they
at the
the
quarry
quarry
field. Yes, there is an area where they already have one container.
There's 2 dumpsters there that are actually for our parks department, that's where they take their trash.
Yes,
That's the
but
closest they can get a dumpster that they can pick up.
they can put third one, and it will be specifically for their own purpose, for their own glass only.
I know, but we're still gonna pay to haul that. We pay for those dumpsters.
Yes, I know, but if they put third one, you
okay,
negotiate,
but
we're not paying for
if
it.
Mascara will do it
Yes,
at their
yes,
expense.
if they want it,
Okay,
if they want it.
okay, okay. All right, anybody else? Thank you all.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, we were gonna look at possible dates.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. All right. Calendars.
Is this regularly scheduled meeting, isn't it?
This was changed in the
No, I
meeting.
know that, this is not.
The next one you're talking about would be a special scheduled meeting.
So it wouldn't be a normal time, like 3 o'clock Wednesday, the third Wednesday, or anything like that.
I think it depends when you pick you want to meet.
We could,
Well, it's a lot easier to schedule
okay.
than moving it all over LCF Baker, trying to figure out what day it is and when it is and all that kind of stuff.
All right, well, how about Wednesday, August 21st at 3?
I can't make
I can't make that actually either.
it, just joking.
I mean, I can make the first part of it, but I'll likely have to leave at 3:30 for West Reading Task Force meeting, and we only meet quarterly, so. I don't know that you need me there, but I'm just telling you.
2:30? No, you have to leave at 3:30, right?
I have to leave by 3:30.
You know, we have it 3, right?
Yeah. So should we start at 2:30?
Is that okay, we set enough time?
Yep.
Depends how
Or
long
2
your
o'clock.
conversation goes.
Well, we can also put this first, I mean, we control which goes first in the agenda, so.
Alright, so 2:30 on the 21st.
8:21, 2:30. All right. Thank you all.